With your latest news, I'm April Cummings. 6 people are in mandatory quarantine in connection with the weekend's breach of the quarantine at residence protocols. The incident was triggered by a traveler Sunday who left their quarantine residence to attend a public jet ski event. The police have since completed their investigation, and a file has been sent to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution for a decision on whether to proceed with prosecution. The DPP is also expected to decide whether anyone else will be charged in connection with the breach. On conviction, offenders are liable to a fine of up to $10,000 and imprisonment for up to 2 years. Public Health, meantime, says it has wrapped up contact tracing and say that because this was an outdoor event, most people were found to be secondary contacts and therefore would not be required to isolate. Police, by the way, confirmed that 3 previous breaches are still under investigation. The Ministry of Financial Services and Home Affairs and the Ministry of Employment and Border Control say the ongoing inquiry into the departure of a group of Cuban migrants confirms that the electronic monitoring technology and the procedures used by the Department of Public Safety Communications work effectively, as designed. Officials say the program is utilized successfully by a number of stakeholder agencies within the criminal justice system to monitor offenders in the community. That includes police, the Judicial Administration, and Her Majesty's Cayman Island Prison Service. According to a statement, per established protocols, the Electronic Monitoring Center at the DPSC contacted Customs and Border Control as the supervising agency to report alerts that were detected indicating a number of people under CBC supervision that were being monitored appeared to have been engaging in movements outside of the, quote, terms and conditions of their release from detention. CBC, with the assistance of the Cayman Islands Coast Guard, responded to the alerts, but say the migrants had already left the Cayman Islands territorial waters. Officials also say that migrants requesting asylum in a foreign country are not considered criminal offenders, and their treatment and processing are governed by the Geneva Convention and its 1967 Protocol on the Treatment of Refugees. We're also told that the electronic monitoring equipment used is different than the equipment used in the Quarantine at Residence program. The Royal Cayman Islands Police and the Cayman Islands Coast Guard have called off the search for the missing man who jumped off a vessel last week. The RCIPS and Coast Guard say the search and recovery efforts have been ongoing over the past 7 days with no success. As of 6 p.m. yesterday, they tell Radio Cayman they have declared the missing man as presumed deceased. 3 men were taken into custody during the incident and some 988 pounds of ganja seized. The Office of the Ombudsman continues to oversee the investigation into the missing person on board the craft. Police say they've incinerated 25 packages filled with what appeared to be cocaine, weighing approximately 66 pounds, with an estimated value of CI $300,000. The packages were recovered on November 9th, having washed ashore in the Guy Banks Road area of Little Cayman. A search of the affected shoreline was later carried out. No other items were found. The packages were incinerated on Thursday, November 26th. The National Housing Development Trust gears up for Phase 3 of the Affordable Homes Project in East End. Radio Cayman's Dion Anglin has more.
The Ministry of Housing and the National Housing Development Trust, NHDT, breaks ground on Phase 3 of East End's Affordable Home Project. Officials say the initiative will help support the island's economic recovery by creating employment in the housing and construction sectors. The $750,000 CI initiative will cover construction of the first 7 sets of the affordable houses for Phase 3 of the project, which is scheduled to begin in mid-December. Construction is expected to begin on an additional 14 houses within the first quarter of 2021. The NHDT also works to help pre-selected applicants find mortgage financing through various local banks. The National Housing Development Trust is a not-for-profit company established in 2003 by the Cayman Islands government that operates under the auspices of the Ministry of Health, Environment, Culture and Housing. Reporting for Radio Cayman News, I'm Dion Anglin.
6 senior public servants have been awarded fellowship status at the Institute of Leadership and Management. Radio Cayman's Carsley Fuller has the details.
Working in partnership with the Institute of Leadership Management, Government Civil Service College says it has been supporting senior leaders to assess their leadership competencies against international benchmarks. Following an assessment of their role and their behavioral competencies against the Institute's 5 dimensions of leadership, Strand Bodden, Derek Byrne, Jennifer Ahern, and Sandy Hermiston have now completed the learning pathway for senior managers and been confirmed as fellows of the Institute of Leadership Management. The Institute's learning pathway covers 5 dimensions of leadership, including authenticity, vision, achievement, ownership, and collaboration. These were mapped to the Cayman Islands civil service competencies of delivering results, building capability, and working with others to ensure a comprehensive assessment. Government's 5-year strategic plan sets out a roadmap for developing leadership across every level of the civil service. Reporting for Radio Cayman News, I'm Karsley Fuller.
The Central Caribbean Marine Institute's reef restoration work continues in the Cayman Islands. Radio Cayman's Felicia Rankin-Solins reports.
The Central Caribbean Marine Institute has focused their efforts on growing and healing the coral reefs in Cayman Islands waters, specifically the staghorn coral.
The reason that we focus on this coral is because it's actually listed as an endangered species, and the densities of this coral have declined dramatically over the past 30-some years in the Caribbean. So we've been working to raise the corals in this nursery with the eventual goal of outplanting them back onto the coral reef.
Gretchen Goodbody-Gringley, Director of Research at CCMI, says they began exploring in 2012 how this was best done. Originally, they started cementing coral fragments onto reef structures, but this resulted in high mortality rates.
So we decided to try a different method, which is to elevate them slightly off of the seafloor. And so we built these, what we call domes, out of rebar. And this is serving as sort of our structure that we can attach the corals to so that they're not directly onto the seafloor. And what we found was that we saw about 80% survival when we were outplanting onto these domes compared to less than 10% when we were putting them directly onto the seafloor.
10 domes in 6 different sites in Little Cayman were outplanted, totaling 120 corals. This change was a major improvement in survival rates.
We went back and checked them 6 months later, and in fact, we found 89% survival. So again, we're showing really high survival rate and great success with this dome outplanting. And what we think is really exciting about this new methodology is that we take these domes and we sort of create a network of them. So instead of just being a single little coral, we really are creating like a complex reef structure. And this helps because now little fish are coming and living inside of this structure, and it boosts not only the diversity of corals, but now also all of the other little organisms that live within this complex structure of the coral.
To learn more on CCMI and their work, visit their website at reefresearch.org. For Radio Cayman News, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
And Cayman's health minister shares a message of solidarity and shared responsibility as the island joins the rest of the world in observing World AIDS Day Tuesday. Radio Cayman's Shanda Gallego explains.
The Ministry of Health and the Public Health Department are once again publicly taking a stand with the world to show their support for people living with HIV and for those who have lost their battle with AIDS. In his World AIDS Day message, Minister Honorable Dwayne Seymour notes the day is an opportunity for the community to come together to take stock of how far we have come in our fight against HIV. HIV, the virus that causes AIDS, is one of the world's most serious public health challenges. However, there is a global commitment to stopping new HIV infections and ensuring access to HIV treatment. The health minister says government and the health ministry remains fully committed to providing access to testing and treatment. Shanda Gallego, Radio Cayman News.
That is your latest local news from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.